find it on page 28. And if you'd like to chant along, that'd be fine. Read along silently, usually if you're comfortable. May the sound of this bell penetrate deep into the cosmos. Even in the darkest spots, living beings are able to hear it clearly, so that all suffering in them ceases. Understanding comes to their heart, and they transcend the path of sorrow and death. The universal Dharma door is already open. The sound of the rising tide is heard clearly. The miracle happens. A beautiful child appears in the heart of the lotus flower. One single drop of this compassionate water is enough to bring back the refreshing spring to our mountains and rivers. Listening to the bell, I feel the afflictions in me beginning to dissolve. My mind calm, my body relaxed. A smile is born on my lips. Following the sound of the bell, my breath brings me back to the safe island of mindfulness. In the garden of my heart, the flowers of peace bloom beautifully.
There is an alarm going off in one of the bags. I think it's not a phone call, but if this is your bag, possibly, there might be multiple. If anybody has a cell phone that's still on too, just power it off or turn it on.
At this time, I'd like to invite our incense lighters forward. And if the rest of you would like to recite the incense lighting gatha with me, you can find it on page 2 of your chant book. Together we say, in gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Good morning. Excuse me. Good to see everyone. My name is Mūshō. I'm a novice priest in the Soto Zen School of Japanese Buddhism and a teacher here at the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple. A couple of morning announcements before we get started. If you are new to the temple, through those curtains right there, you'll find a couple of restrooms. Also, this little doorway to my left over here is a staircase leading to the downstairs area where there's another restroom, a water fountain, there's a kitchen, a library, toys for young ones, and just some space. If anybody needs to use that space or the restrooms at any time, feel free, please. The temple's an open place for you to get up and use as you need. If you do get up during service to walk around, we would ask that you walk around the rear, not between the seated people and the dais, but around the rear part of the Sangha. If you're new, you will see folks doing different forms and of practice, bowing when we come in, bowing to our cushion before we seat, bowing when we leave. We would invite you to participate or not participate as you're comfortable. We do those things not because the space or the cushion is sacred, but rather to create a sacred space for us to practice together. So, now, if we would stand, and I would invite us to greet each other this morning with a silent bow. And while we are standing, we grab up our chant books and turn to page 3. We'll recite the 3 refuges. The Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge of Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to practice mindful breathing and smiling, looking deeply into things. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to offer joy to one person in the morning and to help relieve the grief of one person in the afternoon. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. And if you would turn the page over to the Heart Sutra, we'll recite that together next. Dharma, Rajya, Paramita, Hridaya, Sutra. Thou, Bodhisattva, of great compassion, from the deep practice of prajna, Paramita, perceive the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight. No realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but the prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive ignorance. Without ignorance there is no fear. Away from all delusive views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Knowing the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant, fearless mantra, the utmost supreme mantra, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, paragate, parasambate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasambate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasambate, bodhisvaha. yourself comfortable. Okay. Well, good morning once again. Sometimes during the start of service announcements, teachers will say, was anyone here for the first time? And that's a fine thing. And if folks are here for the first time, they can, raise their hand and be welcomed by the Sangha. And I think that that's a lovely practice. I generally don't do that. Mostly because of a personal preference, I would say. And that is because I remember the first time that I came to the temple and how uncomfortable I was. Also, I'm kind of uncomfortable, ironically enough, having people look at me, being, out in front of folks and things like that. I like to hide mostly. I remember the first time that I came to the temple. We had come for, my wife and I, a introduction to Buddhism class, and taken the class. I had been reading Buddhist books and listening to Dharma talks, on Spotify or podcasts, other places like that, and was really feeling that this was the way my life was aligning, and it was something that I wanted to look into. So we came for the introduction to Buddhism class, and it was a wonderful class, and we had a great time. And then that, I think, following Sunday, perhaps, we came to temple for the first time, and we came in and sat in the back and tried to be inconspicuous, and we did about what, we started the service, or they started the service about how we just did. And I'm not sure, it was the chanting, the lighting of incense, the words in Sanskrit and Pali that I didn't understand. People's names were weird and everything was weird. And it freaked me out, really. And it freaked me out so much that I didn't come back for almost a year. So, we have a Thursday Dharma discussion group, and I think this past Thursday during this group, we were talking about some of this stuff a little bit. I've been thinking a lot about this stuff because I was recently ordained as a novice priest in the Soto Zen lineage. And if any of you were here or saw that ceremony, and it's not the only one that I've sat through, it's also a strange thing. It brings up a lot of religious aspects. As in our Thursday Dharma discussion group, someone said, the smells and bells, right? Everything, the incense, the bell ringing, all of the things, the chanting and all of this stuff. And I find that some folks really, and in our discussion in the Thursday group, it was almost split. I feel like some folks really love that. They love the ritual and form of practice. I love the smells and bells. I love all of the, someone said the hoo-hoo religious stuff, And on the other side of that, and with just as strong of feelings or stronger, folks really don't like it. I really don't like that. I'm a practical Buddhist. The teachings are helping me in my life to have compassion, to have loving kindness for myself and for others, to live my life in a way that I think is good for everyone to live their life. And that's kind of what I want. And all of that religious stuff freaks me out, right? And I was probably more in that category. Some time ago, my teacher, Sanshin Roshi, had their own ceremony here at the temple that some of you may have been at or have seen. It was the Dharma transmission ceremony. There were a couple of them actually, Dharma combat. There were no ninjas, but we were kind of disappointed. And the Dharma transmission ceremony. These are ancient ceremonies in the Soto Zen school, dating back to the 13th century. And some of the stuff is the hoo-hoo religious part, the smells and bells. And I remember I had this memory of going through this before we went into the ceremony with my teacher's teacher, Shuji, who had come up from Kansas to do the Dharma transmission. And at one point, myself and Chungo Su were there as support for Sanshin. And she said, okay, what are we all going to wear? You're wearing, I think at that time I was wearing temple grays. And she said, do you all have white socks? You have to have white socks. And they got to be like the whitest socks that you have, okay? Because it's a really important ceremony and it calls for really white socks. And different aspects of that ceremony, there was a red fan involved. We didn't have a red fan. We had a rainbow fan, which was fabulous, and I loved it. As she went through the list of things that we needed, there's, and as you may have seen in my leaving home ceremony that I recently had too, branches of flowers and water blessings and, all of this stuff. But the white socks stuck with me. Through all of this, right, the important part of the ceremony is the vows, right? We're taking vows to live our life in a certain way. So why, if we're taking these, sacred vows, I would say, these ever important vows of the way that we're going to live our life, would it matter if we wore robes that sleeves hung on the ground, or carried red fans, or how many sticks of incense we would light, or what color our socks were? So part of this is ancient tradition, as I said. We, and through this are, I believe, I would say, honoring our ancestors who also practiced in this way, right? The Dharma was carried over time, over word of mouth, heart to heart, by our ancestors and given as a gift to us. And so as part of receiving that gift, I'm speaking for myself, I would say, I'm ever so grateful that I wish to honor those ancestors in any way that I can. And through that is part of the tradition that I will uphold. The kesa, which is this outer robe that I have, that I had to sew over many months' time myself, is part of this ancient tradition. The kesa, as the story goes all the way back to the Buddha and the way that it is sewn and worn, and the design of it. The Buddha and Ananda were walking one day, as the story goes. It varies in slight ways, as stories will. But there was a rice paddy field where the Buddha said, stopped and said, Ananda, I want you to design or construct a robe that can be worn by my followers so that they're recognized. And the rice paddy field was the inspiration for this. having long parts and short parts and walkways in between. You probably can't see because it's all black, but it's designed in this way with strips of clothing that traditionally they would get from charnel grounds or discarded cloths in some way and sew together in this very particular form. And the form of the sewing and the way that it happens is particular. You know, and so this is, it has symbolism. It represents a place where our spiritual merit can be grown, much like the crops in the rice paddy field. And then also the identification so that folks can see this and immediately recognize one as a follower of the Buddha. And so that tradition, as I said, goes all the way back to the 6th century BC. It's 2,500 years old or thereabout. Also during the Buddha's time, the Buddha established rules for the Sangha, or the, you know, at that time it was the fully ordained monks. And these rules were established through kind of a way that problems come up. Oh, hey, this problem arose and a rule would be made about it. And this problem arose and a rule would be made about it. And there are 227 of these rules or precepts that can be found in the Vinaya Pitaka, the basket of discipline in the Pali Canon that were said to have been left by the Buddha for the Sangha. These are really for the monastic Sangha, the 227 precepts or rules. I believe it is that, well, lay practitioners have, you know, between 5 or 10, 227 for priests. So, so that again is part of this sort of ancient tradition, rules left down for the way that we will practice, behave, rules of etiquette, mindfulness, and behavior that we can follow. Nearly 1,800 years later, after the Buddha's time, the founder of the Soto Zen school, the school that I practice in, Eihei Dogen, wrote the Eihei Shingi, or translates to the pure standards of the Zen community. This is 6 texts that describe procedures, rules, the attitudes that he wanted to instill in the monks that lived in Zen temples. Dogen felt that these practices were essential also to Buddhist practice. He based the Eihei Shingi, these 6 texts, closely on the rules that he encountered in his time in China, somewhere between 1223 and 1227. In particular, rules that were described in the Zen-en Shingi that was written by Choryo Sosaku in 1103, so almost 150 years earlier, or 120 years earlier. These 6 texts that Dogen left are, some of you may or may not have heard of them. The most famous is probably the rules for the cook, the Tenzo Kyokon that he wrote in 1237. The other ones are the model for engaging the way, the model for taking breakfast and lunch, rules for the priest's dormitory, regulations for treating one's seniors, and the sacred rules for temple officers. Dogen cared intensely about all of the little details, how robes are worn, how to enter the zendo or the Dharma hall, how to eat, how to wash one's face, how to use the toilet, how to receive the teachings. Excuse me. Dogen treated these forms, this conduct or manners of practice as far more than etiquette, though. For him, the forms were not a means to enlist or elicit a spiritual result. They were themselves the enactment of awakening. One of Dogen's most famous ideas is Shusho Ito, which is practice and realization are one. You don't practice the forms in order to become enlightened. Practicing wholeheartedly is already the expression of enlightenment. Bowing isn't preparation for awakening. Sitting correctly isn't symbolic of spirituality. Lighting incense, walking, eating, these are not methods. All the forms that Dogen created around these things are not methods for attaining enlightenment. The form itself is the manifestation of our Buddha nature. Practicing it is the manifestation of awakening or of our enlightened mind. So, what exactly does that mean for our practice? When I visited the monastery in Nebraska last summer on one of the occasions that I was there, I asked the head teacher after a service about the forms and what he could say to me about the importance of forms in the practice of Soto Zen. And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, the forms are a place for us to rest our mind. And I really like that a lot, although I can say I wasn't 100% sure right away what he meant or what that might mean. As most things, right, I had to take it and think about it and see how it kind of manifested in my practice. I think that I've come to a little bit of a closer understanding. It's not about obedience or adherence to the form itself. It's the issue is attachment to our preferences. And we can set that down when practicing the forms. Why should I bow? Does this person deserve to be bowed to? Well, I'm equal to them. Like, why am I bowing to them? Why should I bow precisely in this way? Why should I light incense? As the preceptors have gone through our incense lighting training, may know, right? It's very precise. We train it in a very precise way, from the way that we do the sticks, the footsteps, how we step on the dais, all of these things. Why should I light incense in this way? Why should I sit on the cushions in this way? Why should I wear a robe with sleeves so long that they drag on the ground? I prefer a different posture when I sit. I prefer different clothes. This ritual feels unnecessary. I will just do this my own way. But that is the ego asserting itself. And not always, okay? Discernment can matter, right? We wouldn't want you to sit rigidly and be in pain. Be comfortable, right? There isn't, it's funny, after training folks to light the incense in this very precise way, I usually try and say, but really all you're doing is lighting incense. So as long as the incense is lit, you've done your job. And after telling them exactly how to line up the cushions in the very precise way, where the tags go a certain way, the zippers go a certain way, the cushions go so far apart, and then I say, but, don't get too caught up in I did it right or I did it wrong. The wrong way or the right way to do it. The reflex of self-assertion into these things is precisely what the practice of forms can expose. And in this way, ritual and form, the practice of these itself, is an expression of letting go. You're not improvising based on ego. You're not constantly choosing based on what is your preference. I prefer to do it this way. You're allowing yourself to be shaped by something that is larger than you. And again, resistance to the form can be looked at by you, in your practice as and perhaps it's can reveal an attachment to self. On the other hand, attachment to the form is also an attachment to self. So neither rebellion against the form, nor rigid adherence to the form are the point. Neither of these things. The point is, if there is one, wholehearted participation without grasping. In other words, you hold tradition lightly, but practice it wholeheartedly. Fully commit to the form while simultaneously not clinging to it. You bow completely, but don't think of bowing as inherently sacred. You follow the ritual precisely, but don't make it into a fixed identity. Sit every day without the expectation of attaining anything. There is a danger of becoming too rigid in the form. I can certainly speak to this, right? Part of the practice of forms for myself is more the letting go than the adherence. I think when I finally came back to the temple and started doing the things, I did then get a real appreciation for the smells and bells, the ritual and form. And I began to enjoy them. And I think I began to enjoy them because it was a place where I could, as I said at the beginning, possibly hide or rest my mind or just not have to think about, someone looking at me because I'm just doing this thing. I just do this thing in front of me. But then again, I can get caught up in my OCD and the whole, am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? And that's not what we want, Extreme formalism can become obsession. It can become hierarchy, right? I do these forms way better than this other person, okay? Or spiritual performance. You do them so everybody look at me, do these forms. If forms become identity markers, spiritual superiority, or empty mechanical repetition, then they become another form of attachment. So if you try to resolve it intellectually, it can feel sometimes contradictory. Should I follow tradition or should I just let go of everything? The Zen answer is a little bit more experiential. It is perhaps follow it completely and let go while doing so. Or even more bluntly, don't hold on to tradition. Don't reject tradition. Just practice. Now we will prepare ourselves for a short period of meditation. If you want to get comfortable on your cushion, I'm not going to give any instructions on how you should do that. Get yourself comfortable, and we'll sit for a little while. Thank you. Now we'll have a moment to share our joys and concerns as a Sangha. Kungo says, and I like and agree, that this is a way of practicing the four immeasurables, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, equanimity, and the other one. Right. But I also like the aspect that this is a way for us to remember our interbeing, because when we share our concerns, of course, one person's concern becomes all of our concern. And when we share our joy becomes the joy for everyone to take part in. So Samyuga Jiva will have a microphone, and if you want to pass it around, or if you want to raise your hand, he will bring it around to you if you have a joy or concern to share.
I have just a request. If anybody found a pair of glasses 2 weeks ago, would you let me know? I have a friend that lost them, but I have a joy and a concern. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned an organization called Hope for Neighbors. And I've just learned about this group. There are literally hundreds of people involved in North Lake Detention Center. And there are people that are providing rides. Most folks, a lot of them are from Chicago, Detroit, and the surrounding areas. People are providing backpacks because some are detained from their jobs and they have work clothes. Some were taken from their homes in their pajamas. So they're putting together backpacks with personal hygiene items. Some of them went in with their phones and they've been taken. There's an underground railroad that people are providing transportation to back to their home. So there's people that may go up to North Lake and bring them to Grand Rapids. They have overnight people who volunteer to keep them overnight and shower them and feed them, and then send them on their way either by people volunteering to drive or putting them on a bus or on a train. They have folks that visit them. They have people that provide legal advice, some that volunteer money for their bail bond. The stories are pretty tragic, and I thought, what could I do to tell people about this? They had what they called prayer cards, and there's hundreds of people named on these prayer cards, and I brought just a few, and I put them on the bulletin board as you leave with a QR code. If you want to know about what they're doing, I see this as a real opportunity for me personally. I'll just say, to practice loving kindness and compassion. What I'm going to be doing over the next, as long as it takes, I will be adding names. There are people there from Ukraine, people from Venezuela, Guatemala, you can imagine, South Africa, and some of their stories are literally heartbreaking. So check the board, just check. And again, over time, I will keep adding names. The people have requested that we don't forget about them. They said, please remember us. So thank you.
Thank you. I guess my joys kind of comes from a concern in a way. Well, my concern is just for the separation of families due to politics, which my family has been affected by. My oldest sister and my dad kind of have an estranged relationship because of it. And my biggest rebuttal is you're a father before you're a Republican. And these people that you're following don't even know who you are, you know, and your daughter's been there for her whole life, obviously. But because of that, I don't get to see my older sister very often. So the time that I do spend with her is very special to me. She lives in Washington, so that's another reason why I don't see her very often. But the relationship between her and my dad definitely makes it harder. Well, this week, me and my oldest and younger sister, there's three of us, scheduled a sister trip to go see the redwood forest in California. So I'm super excited about that. And that is my joy.
So 2 weeks ago, I came here for the first time, and the joy and concern that I shared is that I was taking my GED, and I wanted to say that I passed. So I officially graduated high school.
My name is Alexis. I just have more of an announcement. I just brought some fruit. So there's some fruit downstairs if you want some. And at the end of today, if there's still like a bunch in there, just take it home with you. I don't need it. But yeah, thank you.
My joy today is seeing all of you all that came out on Memorial Day weekend. I didn't know if there was, I told everybody that I was just going to give a talk to like 6 people. So that's wonderful.
We have a online submission from Deb Tober. I really enjoyed the talk. Thank you, Mūshō. My joy is celebrated my granddaughter's graduation from high school. My concern is accepting that my dogs will be passing over the next few months.
Morning, Sangha. My name is Samyaka Jiva. It's been a couple of weeks since I actually got to be here in person, and last week I got here like 11 o'clock, so that's just an hour late. But I made it for a meeting for 15 minutes and then had to go. It's awesome to be here. It's definitely my joy to be back at the temple. I also have another joy, concern. Just a lot happens in 2 weeks when you don't get to say your joys and concerns every week. I randomly ended up at, I used to be a high school Spanish teacher, and I left to become a beekeeper, and it's been 2 years, and I randomly ended up at the high school graduation. I found out about it an hour before it was happening. This is how everything goes in my life. But I got there, and people are like, my old students, they said, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, I guess I'm supporting you. And I got to talk with some of my old students, and it was a real like tearjerker just to, hear that like how much, you might be loved in doing your job and you don't even know it, or how much you are helping people and you don't even know it. And I had a student, I saw them and they're like, "Senor Rash." And I'm like, "Hi." And they're like, "Oh, it's so good to see you." And I was like, "I could have swore you hated me." And her mom's like, "You took her phone." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." She's like, "No, I didn't hate you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't." It was just amazing to see that. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy. My joy is it's my husband's 50th birthday today, and he is a very kind and compassionate person, very empathetic, and it's a joy to celebrate him today.
All right. We'll take just a moment to let those joys and concerns sink in. Okay. Some May announcements. Dharma teacher intern Upaya is ordination for teacher ordination and potluck are going to be Sunday, June 7th. Please join us for Upaya's Dharma teacher ordination and potluck following the Sunday service downstairs in the temple community room. Pride booth, our temple's participating in the Grand Rapids Pride Week, and we have a booth, and we're looking for more volunteers to sign up. So I don't know, I believe there's likely a sign up over there on the bulletin board or table somewhere. And if not, oh, there is. There is. There you go. There are no names on the sign-up sheet. Samyog Jiva, write my name on there. There you go. Okay. Plenty of space for other names. It's a wonderful time. I don't know if anybody has been to Pride. I actually, when I was a very young person, growing up in Denver, they had a Pride parade, and we would always go down and just watch the parade, and it was an awesome thing because it's, you know, a festivity. 2 years ago was the first time I had ever been to Pride in Grand Rapids, and I went down for the temple had a booth at that time, and it was the most amazing, fun time. I have never felt more, you know, just togetherness, love for everybody in one space. It was just amazing. And no matter who you were, what you were doing there, there was love for you there. And it was really a wonderful feeling to sort of soak in. So I would encourage everybody to come down. If you're not going to volunteer in the booth, come down and have a good time anyway. Our online meditation group, Wednesdays from 6 to 6:45 p.m. You can join via Zoom or contact Venerable Kunga or see the newsletter for more information. Thursday, Dharma discussion group. I believe this coming Thursday is our last group for the year. We have the summer. We take the summer off from that Dharma discussion group. Looks like we have a book lined out on our announcements for the beginning of next year. The group, when it comes back, will begin essentially at the end of the summer when the kids go back to school, and it will be Thursdays here in the temple from 9:30 to 11. We'll be reading and discussing the Diamond Sutra by Red Pine, and if you are interested in more details or information about that group, you can contact Reverend or Venerable Jingsu, Ryan, or see the newsletter for more information. Buddhist-based recovery meetings, Monday, 6:30 for meditation, 7 p.m. in the temple. Wednesdays, 6:30 at the Alano Club, 1020 College Ave. Fridays, 10 a.m. for meditation, 10:30 here in the temple or join via Zoom. For more information, contact Anana Paula Craig or see the newsletter for more information. An announcement that I have is that on the schedule originally we had a celebration for the Buddha's birthday on this day and a potluck. And I understand some folks said maybe that it was mentioned at during service possibly last week that there was going to be a potluck, but there was no mention on our website. There was no mention on the newsletter. So apologies for that. But that being said, today, if you want to come downstairs, 1 or 2 people did bring something to share. And of course, we're just going to have social hour and tea, and there might be a snack. And that's in celebration of the Buddha's birthday. I didn't prepare anything coming into this thinking that we were essentially not having the potluck and celebration today, in celebration of the Buddha's birthday. But I would say my thought is an encouragement that as you go out today and you go into the world and bring your practice out there with you, you can keep in mind, of course, the teacher that brought us all the Dharma and, gave us the method by which we practice today in honor, as I said earlier, of the Buddha, our ancestor, and everyone that came after. So, and for all the announcements I said before that, if you want any details on those, you can always go to the website, zengr.org, or see the newsletter. Are there any other announcements? Wonderful.
Good morning, Sangha. My name is Ellen. In our practice, the word dana means generosity, and there are a ton of ways to practice that right here at the temple. I've talked before about our volunteers, and this ship doesn't sail without them. Everything that happens here happens because somebody has volunteered their time. They've been generous with their time. We're very organized, like I've mentioned before. The Dharma Disciples is our group. But the other thing I don't think I've been real clear about is if you decide at some point, I think I'd like to do that incense thing, it's not like they're going to hand you a lighter and a stick and say, go for it. There is training, like Jeremy mentioned before. You will be trained. You're going to be a greeter at the door. There's training. We also have like a workbook or a guidebook that details all that, how to set up the Dharma hall, all that, how to water the plants, blah, blah, blah. So that's all there. And the other thing about the Dharma Disciples is we do have a chat group. And so like last week, I was supposed to do this and I was sick. So I'm like, I think it was late at night and I'm like, I'm not going to make it. And boom, somebody was like, nope, no worries. Got you covered. So if you have signed up, you're going to do the potluck clear up afterwards. And, you stub your toe in the middle of the night and you're limping around and you're staying home. Come into the chat and let us know and somebody will step up for you. Now, regarding the chat, something interesting happened this week. Apparently, I don't know anything about this stuff, but apparently the chat that we're in is limited as to how many people can be in it. So there was a lot of discussion about what we should be doing. The only thing that sounded slightly familiar was WhatsApp. After that, I know nothing. But there was a lot. There was voting, then there was back and forth. Well, which one do you like better? And then it took a hard right into Comedy Central. And I'm telling you what, here's the thing. The crazy bus was being driven by one of our monks, whom I won't name, but look for the one that's wearing the crazy orange glasses. Yeah, pretty much that was that person. So I still don't know. I think they made a decision somewhere along in the end of the week. No, still didn't. It's hard to say because I still don't understand it. And actually, Ashton is the one that helps me out. He sends me a private text. You're doing the Donna talk on the 7th and the 14th. Okay. Otherwise, I don't know how to operate that kind of stuff. Anyway, being part of the Dharma disciples is pretty cool. And it's a way to help. And if you think you could do one time a month, fine. If you could do it every week, whatever, cleaning up after potlucks and so on, we would really appreciate it. And the second thing, of course, for the generosity is financial support. Somebody's keeping the air conditioning on today, and that's money driven. So if you can, we have Dharma boxes on the end of the Dharma hall that with a QR code that takes you directly to PetPal. Also, it takes cash and a check. And we also, if you go to the website, zengr.org, another donate button straight to PetPal. I say PetPal all the time. It's one of my favorite rescues down in Florida. PayPal. And then also, if you're watching at home today, which the tech people make sure that happens every week, that people who can't get here, and I understand you don't have to have an advanced degree from MIT to work back there. Okay. There's also a drop-down menu for PayPal again. So whatever you can do, whenever you can do it, or just be here, you are donating, you are volunteering your time, and everybody appreciates you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. We appreciate you. Don't know what we would do without you. Okay. I think that brings us to the end of service. Again, as I said, we social hour and some snacks and tea downstairs. Before we stand up for our closing gathas, after the gathas, as we are leaving, someone will come around and collect the chant books. Please turn them back to the front page. If you can, try to arrange your cushion the way that you found it. And that's it. We'll all stand for our closing gathas. Thank you. They can be found on page 6. Together we say, for all unskillful actions ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born in my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, the formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddha's teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to enter. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. And if we can split the room, center, this half turn towards this half turn towards this half, and we'll give each other a parting vow. Wonderful to see you all. Thank you for coming. Be safe the rest of the weekend.